Welcome to Yeukai Business Show, UK's premier business show where we feature business thought leaders, high achievers, and industry experts. Today's episode is brought to you by World Outsourcing Solutions Limited, a company that specializes in helping executive business owners with virtual assistant services and business growth systems. Here's your host.
Hello everyone and welcome to the show. I'm Trevor Stockwell and my guest today is Steve Sims. Now, Steve's been labelled by Entrepreneur magazine as the real-life Wizard of Oz. Why? Well, because he's developed a reputation for making the impossible possible. And he's going to share some examples about that shortly. He's also the author of the book Bluefishing, The Art of Making Things Happen. And he helps business owners improve their communication and utilise their relationships to accelerate business goals. He does so much more than that, but that's just a brief introduction, so you know that we're talking to a really good guy here. So without further ado, welcome Steve Sims. Thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have the opportunity to chat with you actually and just plumb some of your expertise and your decades of experience running businesses and helping business owners as well. Maybe just to start with, do you want to share a little bit about your beginnings, your background and your journey that sort of brought you to this where you are now?
Well, I don't think that's of interest because I think it's the same as every other entrepreneur in the planet. I grew up as a curious, pissed off child. I left school at the age of 15, just outside of London. And my dad threw me onto the building site then. And I just thought, is this it? And of course, I came from a period of the 80s where I didn't have Instagram and Facebook to show me how inadequate my life was. I just had this innate feeling that I could do better. I needed to do more. I needed to change the people I associated with. I needed to get answers. And I went out on that journey to do so. And like all entrepreneurs, we 9 times out of 10 start off with some kind of grumble or some kind of alienation that causes us to go out and to fix it and impact others.
Yeah, that makes sense. So was there any influence of sort of other entrepreneur activities from friends or relatives or anything like that? Or were you kind of the first pioneer in the family?
There was no direction from other entrepreneurs because I didn't know what an entrepreneur was. And let's be blunt, how old are you?
Oh, I don't know if I want to disclose that now. 49.
49. All right. See, do you remember Only Fools and Horses, the sitcom?
Absolutely.
Right? So if you go back in the 80s and 90s, if you were an entrepreneur, people looked at you like you were Del Boy trying to sell used car stereos out of back of your three-wheeler. So being an entrepreneur back then meant that you couldn't get a real job. You were looked down on. You were like selling fraudulent or fake stuff. Yeah. That's what the entrepreneur, now it's revered. If you go back in the 80s and 90s and you go, hey, who do you want to be? People would go, I want to be Michael Jackson. I want to be, the lead singer of, the Guns N' Roses. I want to be Tom Cruise. I want to be Brad Pitt. You wanted to be a singer or you wanted to be an actor. Those were the most influential, famous people of that era. Now, you want to be Jeff Bezos. You want to be Elon Musk. We've got Mark Cuban. You want to be a rock star. The rock stars of today are entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Now, back then, I didn't have any of that. We didn't know what those people were. So I knew that I was disgruntled, but we had no goalpost of who we were trying to be. But I do remember my granddad. My granddad was in his 80s, and he was on the same building site as me because he worked for my dad. And I remember running up to him one day going, Granddad, you're 80 years old. Did you ever think you'd be doing this when you were this age?
Yeah.
Now, that is a very insulting statement. And bearing in mind, I was 16 years old, so I didn't have any kind of, idea of how to be refined or maybe reframe the question. I was just stunned that an 80-year-old still working on the building site. Yeah. What was really upsetting was my dad was on the building site, my cousins were on the building site, my uncle was on the building site. Therefore, my granddad represented to me the end of my lifeline. Yeah. I could see my entire journey ahead of me, ending with him still in his 80s, still on the building site, still getting rained on and shit on and breaking things and hurting himself. So when I said this to him, he didn't actually take it with annoyance or aggravation. In fact, he didn't even look at me. He just blew into his tea on the building site, just trying to get some warm liquid in him. And he turned around and he said, son, if you don't quit today, you'll be me tomorrow.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa. You know, so I didn't have any entrepreneur's drive in me, but I did have this curiosity and this aggravation steering me. And I quit that day, and I started 1,000,001 jobs that I was ill qualified to do. I was no good at. I got fired at. So I would come home. I would start a job at 8 o'clock in the morning. By midday, I was fired, and I came home, and my mum was like, oh, you can't even keep a job. You're going to go to jail. And I was like, no, but I'm not going to waste my life.
Yeah.
I'm going to find what I was meant to do. And I was just willing to risk me to find that. And that was my growing up path. I did a lot. You could have easily looked at me, because bearing in mind, you know, I'm a big lad. I'm a biker. I was just not as big then, but still a biker. Funny enough, I had a bit of hair on me. But, you know, I was turning up, rolling around on motorcycles, not keeping jobs. Everyone just thought I was destined to spend my life in jail. But no, I wanted more, and I was willing to go and find it.
Yeah, that's good. That's the sort of courageous part, isn't it? Because some people just see that and think, well, this is my lot in life. This is it. Just grin and bear it kind of thing. And then they slowly die. They slowly lose passion.
No, I don't want to disagree with you, but there was no courage in me. There was no courage. There was no bravery. I was frightened. I was frightened that I was going to be my granddad.
Yeah.
You see, it doesn't take courage to run away from fire. You know, it takes fear to run away from fire. It takes courage to bloody stay in there. For me, I wasn't willing to be my granddad, so I was moving on fear. A lot of people enable fear to keep them stationary.
Yeah.
You know, they go, oh, I'm scared, and they recoil, and they stay still. For me, when I'm frightened of something, I have to move. Whether I'm running forward to confront my fear, or I'm running the hell away from it so I don't get burnt or attacked by a lion. But for me, I wasn't courageous. I wasn't brave. I was moving on fear of a glimpse of what I saw could potentially be my life, and I wasn't going to accept it to be.
Yeah. No, that's a good way of putting it, actually. Yeah, I know where you're coming from on that. So let's jump forward a little bit to, you've been sort of like described as the real life Wizard of Oz. So you set up a luxury concierge service. Is that how you then got that sort of that reputation, or was it before that?
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I never set up the concierge firm. I just wanted to be in a room and to hold a conversation with a rich person. So I went out to try and find out, well, okay, if a rich person's going to talk to me, what can I do for a rich person? And at the time, I was a doorman of a nightclub, so I knew where all the bars were. I knew where all the private parties were going on. So I was just helping rich people. And I could have helped people that never had a lot of money, but then what would have been the point of that? Yeah, how would that have helped me? So I was very selective that if you were wealthy, I'd help you. Hey, are you going to Bobby's party on the afternoon? I remember I was in Hong Kong, and there was a nightclub, and Bruce Willis was turning up. And Bruce Willis at the time, with all the Die Hard movies, was like the Brad Pitt of the era. He was like the biggest. So I was able to go around to some of my really affluent clients and go, hey, do you want to go to a party with Bruce Willis? And they were like, oh my God. And they were like, great, you know, that'll be $2,000. And I was selling me, getting them in the back door of a club in the VIP area where Bruce Willis was. And then they were very excited about that. And then I would talk to them the following day. Did you have a good time? I had a great time. Great. Hey, go ask you, how come you're so rich and I'm not? And that's how it was. I literally just started not to develop a concierge firm, but to get your attention to ask that question. And it was a horrible question. I learned the ability to communicate by communicating badly. I learned to do everything well by first doing it shit. And I remember I used to go up to rich people and I'd be like, hey, how come you're rich and I'm not? And that's a terrible question. And the reason it's terrible, if I ask you, hey, how rich are you? You're straight away going to think of that as a monetary question. How much money do I have? For a start, it's going to make you nervous and it's going to make you uncomfortable. But you'll be thinking, well, rich, how much money do I own? How much is in my house? How much is in my bank account? You have $4,735, Steve. You know, it's a number. When I ask someone how rich you are, most people think of a number.
Yeah.
And they don't want to get. It's like asking me how big's your penis. You don't want to tell me, you know.
Yeah.
And so I realized that was the wrong question to ask. So then I started asking people, "Hey, how come you're wealthy and I'm not?" Now that's a better question.
Yeah.
Wealth, that brings in other things. But you know, funny enough, when people start talking about wealth, they start talking about their position in life, their satisfaction, their family, the impact, the charity. Well, that's great. You're telling me about everything you do. Now you've got money, you know? I don't care. I want the missing link. I want to know how to get it. Someone's got, oh, I'm wealthy because I met my wife when I was young. I'm not going to marry your wife. So that's not helping me.
Yeah.
So again, wealthy, hey, gives you a different different framework of the answer, but it's still not the answer I want. So then I would go out to people and I'd be going, hey, how come you're successful and I'm not? That was it. That was the magic question. All of a sudden, success is money, position, mindset, it's everything. Okay. And now people will be like, oh, well, it's because I look at things like this, Steve. Oh, it's because I always did this. It's because I opportunitized this moment. Oh, it's because... And they tell me about how they're successful. Now that I've got that information, what moron would be given that information? If you had a half-hour conversation with Elon Musk and he could tell you how to be a millionaire by Friday, how stupid do you have to be not to action that information?
Yeah.
So now that I was getting this information, I actually went out and started actioning it. And now I was getting better and better. And I was getting, you see, the daft thing is, you don't lose weight by buying a diet book. You lose weight by actioning that diet book. Now you're thinner as a byproduct of your actions. I became richer monetarily as a byproduct of obtaining a successful mindset. And that's what I did. I started actioning the successful mindset. I started viewing things the way very, very wealthy people view them. I started actioning things the way they action it. I started emulating very successful people. I became successful. And of course, along the way, I'm dealing with a millionaire. Now I'm dealing with a guy that's got $10 million, 75, a billionaire, trillionaire. You know, I'm now up in my game trying to get these opinions. And as it was growing along the way, to keep that engagement, I would do this with Elton John, or I would do this with Guns N' Roses, or I would do this with the New York Fashion Week. All of the things I did created this concierge firm, but it was no more than a Trojan horse. All I wanted to do is hold a conversation with an incredibly affluent, successful person, not a lottery winner. You talk to a winner of a lottery that's just won $25 million and go, hey, how are you successful? They've got no idea.
Yeah.
How did you make money? I bought a ticket at the gas station. They've got no education whatsoever. That's why most lottery winners go broke real fast.
Yeah.
But I got that information. I actioned it along the way. By default, became the man that can. And then people like, you know, the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times and the South China Morning Post found out about this guy that got people into places. I started getting some press and media on it. And all of a sudden, I was the real life Wizard of Oz, or the one I liked was the Make-A-Wish Foundation for people with really big checkbooks. And it was just, there were some funny little titles that I got, but I became the guy that was well known for hanging around with millionaires and billionaires. Now, when you're known as the guy that hangs around with millionaires and billionaires, if you're a millionaire and billionaire, you end up trying to find out who I am. So it just became a constant circle. It became that snowball that you throw down the side of a mountain. And along the way, I just happened to build a concierge firm. And now, because of the book, I train people on how they can do it themselves.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I was going to ask you about the book. But as you're sharing, I'm kind of thinking, yeah, so momentum is building over a period of time because you're becoming a different person. You're taking action.
Yep.
The information that you've got, you're open to change things because actually that language isn't working. I need to refine it. I need to try this language. So was there a point where then momentum just kept going, or did you find you kind of plateaued and thought, right, what's the next step? How do I take it up a notch? Or was that really through other relationships that you sort of came into contact with through the people you were hanging around?
So my wife has always said that I'm an Irish 5-year-old. And I've always been that Irish 5-year-old, even though I'm 55 now, I'm still an Irish 5-year-old. So I'm constantly curious. I constantly want an extra cookie. I constantly want to see what I can get away with. And that curiosity, I think, has been my PhD. I think today, sadly, a lot of people aren't curious. Yeah. They want, they demand, they would like, but they're not curious about how it works. Now, I'm the kid that would pull the back off of a TV just to see how it works. Can't put it back together again, but now I know what the back of a TV looks like. So I was that kid. So it's never been a case of a plateau. It's been a case of, okay, where can I take this? How can I take this next? How can I push this forward? How can I do more with this? How can I put this into the world of the stupid and extreme? See, I never go for the impossible. The second you say the word impossible, you've given yourself a give out. Hey, I'm gonna do this. Everyone thinks it's impossible, but I'm gonna go for it. When you don't do it, you can go, well, that's why they call it impossible. You've given yourself a get out. And I don't like that. So what I do is everything I do, I go, okay, how stupid can I make this? How ridiculous can I make this? I'm going to go for that. And he's not a friend, but he's a guy that I've worked with a few times, Elon Musk. He said to me, they will always laugh at you just before they applaud. And I love that. I want to go for the laughable. So everything I try to do, whether it's getting married in the Vatican by the Pope, closing down a museum in Florence for a party of 6, a dinner party at the feet of Michelangelo's David, and then having Andrea Bocelli come in and serenade you, getting you a guitar lesson with ZZ Top, a drum lesson with Guns N' Roses, any of the magical, whimsical, fantastical stuff I've done, I've always gone, okay, how can I make this stupid? You want a drum lesson? How can I get you a drum lesson with Guns N' Roses? You want to get married? How can I help that be the Pope do it? Just how can I make something ridiculous and stupid? And the daft thing is, never go for what you can achieve, because you have no idea what you can achieve. And you'll only ever go for what is like an inch further than your touch. That's just within grasp. If I just stretch, that. Go for the ridiculous. Come up with something that is just absolutely ludicrous and go for it. You may not get it, but I guarantee you your advancement will be a millennium further than when you went for something that you could achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like aim for the stars. If you hit the moon, at least you've left the planet. That's the way I look at it. It's like, that's a really good. That in itself, that's a mindset shift, isn't it? From the day to day.
Yeah.
Play it safe.
It is.
Let's set goals on things we think we can achieve. It's like, well, that's not really what goals are for so much. It's more about stretching you to get to the point where you become a bigger person and then you achieve bigger things. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
For everybody listening that is one form or another in business or thinking about being in business, networking, people love it, people hate it, depending how well and how good they are, how well they use it and maximize it. You've mentioned about certain language that you would use. You've mentioned certain people you connect with better and your approach changed. But any other things that you could share that would be maybe quick wins for people to just stop and think, actually, I'm doing that and that's not working? Things you've learned.
Yeah, that's good.
Any advice like that?
Yeah. I hate networking and I'm crap at it. That's the first thing. I will declare that. I love having a conversation, though. So when I go to an event, you get the prairie dog card hounds. And these are the people that run around as many people as they can, get as many business cards as they can, and they stick their head up looking for the next person to walk through the door, and then they go and attack them. The following morning, what they end up with is 1,000 credit business cards and no connection.
Yeah.
So I look for that one connection. And one of the ways that I found a good way to do that is stop carrying business cards. If you're a plumber, or if you're a technician, or you're a dentist, and you're going, well, I have to carry business cards, ask yourself this question. Do you have business cards in your wallet? Yes. When you go to an event, do you give out business cards? Yes. When you go to an event, do you like it when people give you their business cards? No. No one likes getting a business card. yet we still give them out.
Yeah.
So the way of getting over this, you can easily turn around and go, look, I'd love to give you my card, but I just actually gave the last one away, and the rest of them are back in my office. But if you give me your cell phone number, I will text you my details now, and we can be in communication. Okay? Never let someone off by just giving them a card. Hey, I'm sorry, I just gave my last card away. But, hey, what's your cell phone? I'll just text you. In fact, let's get a picture so that we know who we are. And do that. That's the deeper way of starting a conversation. You know, I'm going to send you this text. What is it you were looking for? You know, or what's your problem? Or how can I help you? Why are you talking to me as a dentist? You know, your teeth look great. You know, so just start the communication and the connection. But the key, the goal, the objective, which is what a lot of people don't have, they have the objective as get the business card. That's the objective. What can you do with a business card? Okay? The objective should be to start a conversation, enter into communication. And the best way to do it is not to get their email, but to get their cell phone number. Because then you can text them your email. You can text them more information. And I'm a great believer that texting is far, far superior to email.
Yeah. I think people check their phones for texts and messages quicker than emails, don't they? Generally, if it's sort of messenger apps. And
they respond faster. Yep.
Yeah. I know I do. Yeah, there's certain times when I'll look at emails, but if I get a prompt for a message or something from another app, generally I'll look at that quicker. It makes a lot of sense.
Everyone does. You're not rare. That's the reason I do it.
Yeah, that's good. So for everybody, if you're not doing that at the moment, make sure you start doing that. But also, like what you said, it's bringing the human element, the connection of, I remember Steve. Yeah, we spoke about this, that, or the other, or he's the guy that does this. And it's somehow building rapport past a little piece of card, isn't it? A little picture, maybe a little logo of what, you know, people aren't going to remember you for that. But if you actually connect with someone human to human, even if you're in different sort of sectors and offering different services, you're more likely to then, actually, I don't think I can work with him, but I might cross paths with somebody else that I think will be a really good fit. So yeah, I like that. It takes the coldness out and brings back the sort of the human element, I think. So yeah, that's really good. It's really good. Let's just dig in a little bit to your book as well, because you mentioned about being curious. I'm curious as to what's in the book. I've not looked at it yet, so give us a quick synopsis of what's in the book. So
the book's a kind of a funny story. If anyone out there is trying to write a book, I apologize for the next story because it's going to aggravate you. When you're in a good room, great things happen. When you're in a bad room, bad things happen. And so I've always tried to make sure that I get myself into good or great rooms. I was in a party in New York. I met someone. I'm swapping stories. She runs off. I thought I'd upset her. She brings back this other lady, and she said, tell that story again. And I tell her this story. A week later, I got the contract from one of the largest publishing houses in America to write a book. And they wanted me to write the book on what I had got up to with all the most famous, powerful people in the planet. And I said, I can't do that because if I do that, I'd be dead before cocktail hour. So I can't do that book. And so then I got talking to them and I got to know them a little bit more. And about a month later, I did a speech for a guy called Joe Polish. And they said to me, hang on a minute, you talk about how a bricklayer from London suddenly did this with the Vatican or did this with Andrea Bocelli or did this with Sir Elton John. We'd like the book on that. So they offered me that deal and I went, yeah, hell yeah. So, and they paid me very well. That's an important thing to know. It's not a show off, but here's the thing. When you write a book, there are two ways you're paid: at the beginning or from the book sales. Yeah. When you're paid from the book sales, a lot of people dilute that tone of voice to attract more people. But when you're paid at the beginning, you don't give a shit about that. You can write the book you want to write. That's what I did. And I thought to myself, as a bricklayer from London that's now dealing with the biggest brands and companies and events and people in the planet, maybe I can help other people, you know? So I wrote that book. The book talks about communication. It talks about the ROI of communication, why it's so important, how to go for the ask, how to ask why 3 times, why you need to focus on branding, how branding is a myth. but you need to focus on it. How to do a social introduction. What is a digital ecosystem? It basically tells you how to refine you and amplify your message to become someone's solution rather than someone's marketing pitch. And the book came out. I didn't know if it was going to be any good. I didn't know if anyone was going to resonate with it. For 2 months, it did okay. Third month, just exploded. Since then, it's been a bestseller and translated into, I think, 8 different languages. Just recently, it was translated into Russian. So I'm getting a lot of emails that I can't understand. But it's been in Polish, Mandarin, Chinese, Thai, Vietnamese, Korean, a whole bunch of languages. It's been a bestseller in all of them. And so there's a second book, Go for Stupid, that I'm playing with now. It's nowhere near finished. But now I'm pushing the book out there to get other people to change the way they move. And understand, I've already been paid. Get the book, don't get the book. It does not affect me financially. But it does affect me in the fact that if people can learn to communicate and to establish true relationships, that's creating more of a world that I want to live in.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's always areas we can develop and be open to new approaches and new ways of doing stuff, because without being intentional about it, we sort of slip into old patterns of thinking, old approaches to certain stuff as well. And it's just like, every now and again we need like a metaphorical slap around the side of the face just to sort of wake up and actually let's think about this differently rather than just the same old stuff. So that's really
every
good.
time.
And you also do, like, you're a speaker, you do coaching as well for certain individuals and consultancy and things like that, don't you? Tell us.
So
who would
we
hire
opened
you
up
as a consultant?
So the way that we work is we own a company, Sims.media, and we also do personal coaching and branding. So we look to help the individual in the business focus on their message, focus on how they're portraying themselves. See, a lot of people, and you can try this at home, you don't need to hire anyone for this, Google yourself. Now, you think that may sound a bit arrogant, but people are checking you out before they get into a conversation with you.
Yeah.
How are you showing up and where? Is there someone that's got a name very similar to you doing some strange things on Tinder? You see, the weird thing is you've got to know everything about you in order to be able to amplify you. Also, and here's a little test for all of you, open up your social platforms. Open up LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, any of the social platforms that you use. And here's the daft thing. At the last count, this was about a week ago, there were just under 500 social platforms in the planet.
Well, yeah.
But we only know of about 4 or 5, okay? And we only use about 4 or 5. Triller, Parler, MeWe, these will all kind of come and go kind of social platforms. But pick up the main ones that you use. And then here's the funny thing. Are you the same person in every single one of those social profiles? Because it's funny, because in LinkedIn, you'll be there in a suit and you'll all be trying to look all respectable. You'll get over to Facebook and this girl's gone wild. You're sitting there in your Bahamas shorts with a cocktail looking like an idiot. So you've got to make sure that you are the exact same person. Look at Apple. Apple's the exact same wherever it appears. There's no confusion. And confusion is the big C of business. So the first thing that we do is we actually look to identify you. We look to identify what your purpose is, what you actually do, what your message is, what are you the solution to, and then who's got that problem, and then we amplify that. And that's what we actually focus on. So that's how we coach, that's how we brand, and that's how we get small businesses the clientele that they want, not the clientele that they've been getting.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, that's a good approach to that. And it's obviously working as well, which is good. Yeah, I like that. So for anybody that wants to touch base and kind of follow you more, just there'll be a link to your website below, but what's the best way? Just head to the website first?
Well, we've got an Entrepreneur's Advantage Facebook group, which is free of charge. But you can head over to Steve D. Sims, D for dashing, only one M in Sims. You can either find me at stevedsims.com or you can find me Steve D. Sims on any social platform, because here's a shock for you. I'm the exact same at every single platform. So, do that. Hunt me out. Instagram, I tend to do a lot of posting on there, but if it lights you up, or head over to sims.media and to see what all that's about.
Okay, yeah, it sounds good. And you do a podcast as well, don't you?
The art of making things happen. We've had prostitutes, head of biker gangs, made men, priests, Fortune 500s, rock stars. I like to get interesting characters to get their perspective, their point of view. So we'll talk about anything from cryptocurrency to body language.
Sounds interesting. Yeah, definitely. Thank you for everything that you've shared. Thanks for giving us your insight in the world of Steve a little bit and your perspective on how you were successful and your approach to different things. Really appreciate your time. And for everybody listening as well, make sure you take action. Make sure you ditch your approach to business cards and how you approach people when you're trying to connect. Don't just be a networker in the old-fashioned way. Make it human, make it real. And the different practicality or different practical steps that Steve shared with regards to who are you on the different platforms, and are you who you want to be? Are you really you, or are you who you think you should be? That's the key thing. I think authenticity is a huge way of separating the fake from actually who can help me as to who's just saying the right things. So that's important as well. Lots to think about, lots to ponder and take action. Pick one or two things that resonate with you from our chat today. Start putting that into action, and then check out Steve's book, check out his website, see how else you can learn from him, learn from the success that he's got now. What would be your next step, Steve? Any next steps? You mentioned about the book.
My next step, or for people listening?
No, just you, for Steve Sims.
For me, again, where does it stop? What can I do now? How can I add some cherries on this? It's just my mentality. It's McDonald's built a fortune off of, would you like me to add fries to that? And that's my life. I've got a book's doing really well. So how can I add fries to it? Build a course, build a coaching, build the media, get a second book out there, do more speaking, do more podcast guests. So I'm constantly developing. I get onto a lot of podcasts. I love being a podcast guest. And I'm really excited about the second book. When it comes out, I don't know. But we do know already it's called Go for Stupid.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. And if people sign up to your newsletter or follow you on social media, that's the best way.
They'll be told, yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. Again, we'll wrap it up there, but appreciate your time. And for everybody listening, as I say, make sure you take action. Put something into action that's going to change your approach and your life going forwards. Thanks for joining us, and we will catch you next time. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to Yeukai Business Show. We will be back to bring you more episodes with success stories and advice straight from the experts. Want more? Check out www.yukaibusinessshow.com. Get your free trial of our virtual assistant service today. Just visit www.worldoutsourcingsolutions.com. Quote WOS18 or send us an email at support@worldoutsourcingsolutions.com.